So we're still creating our character. We are in the middle of the playlist now, and we are really close. I do want to spend a few minutes talking just about hit points. It's really important. It's super simple. It's going to be a really short video, but I'm back from my oral surgery. I can even smile. We'll see you guys in a bit. Don't forget to like these videos and please share them with all of your D&D curious friends who are just getting started. Help them get up to speed with their player character sheets. The sooner they get through this, the faster you guys can start playing Dungeons & Dragons. Hit points in a nutshell for Dungeons & Dragons, 5th edition. It's basically how tough your character is. You have a certain number of points, and if you take damage, either in combat or another scenario, maybe you've gotten hit by a trap, or you've fallen, whatever the case may be, the amount of damage that you take is quantified, and that number comes off of your hit points. So you've got a number of hit points, that's how tough you are, you take damage, they lessen, they lessen, they lessen, and they get smaller and smaller and smaller until they get all the way down to 0, and then you have to start rolling death saving throws. Ha! So where did the hit dice come from? Hit dice is associated with each character class. Underneath the character description in the player's handbook, one of the very first sections is hit dice. And it tells you that's the dice that's going to determine the number of hit points a character has. For a wizard, it's a d6. For many character types, it's a d8, so bards, clerics, druids, etc., it's a d8. And then for fighters, it's a d10, so you can already kind of tell the game has a level of tankiness that it already assumes associated with certain classes. So when you're first starting out, you're building your very first character, you don't roll for hit points. You take the maximum of whatever that hit dice is. So for the bard here, you've got a d8. So the hit points for your very first level 1 bard is going to be 8 plus your constitution modifier. You always add your constitution modifier to your hit dice roll, or in the case of level 1, your hit die maximum to determine the hit points. So if I'm rolling up a bard, let's see, my hit points for level 1 are going to be 8 plus my constitution modifier. Say it's a +2, so I'll have 10 hit points. Not very many, but that's how it starts. So how do you get more hit points, you ask? Every time you level up, you roll 1 additional hit dice per level. So when my bard hits level 2, I will roll a d8, 6, and then I will still add my constitution modifier. So if he had 10 to start with, I just rolled a 6, and then I'll add my con modifier +2, so that's 8. And then at level 2, he will have 18. And you do it again, level 3. 7. Oh man, this bard's look good. So I would add 9 more, because 7 plus my +2 con modifier, and it just accumulates like that, and that's how hit points get bigger as you level up. So you're like, Ryan, there's a whole section for temporary hit points. What is that all about? I've got hit points, then I've got temporary hit points? Maybe. Temporary hit points are hit points that are separate from your normal regular hit points. Sometimes certain spells will grant you temporary hit points, things like that. It's basically a buffer against damage. So if you do take any kind of damage, it comes out of your temporary hit points first, and then hops over to your actual hit points. So your temporary hit points can actually exceed your hit point maximum. But that's why, it's a lot of space and a lot of player character sheets associated with temporary hit points that don't come up that often, but that's where you would jot those down. And hit points is definitely something where you would want to use a pencil. You're going to be doing lots of, if you're not using DnDBeyond, you're going to be doing lots of erasing. So, there you go. Oh, speaking of hit dice, so you can take a short rest after combat or after you've been injured if your Dungeon Master allows it. This is how you can recover hit points. You get a number of hit dice associated with your player character level that you can roll during the short rest, and then you can add those back to your hit points. Not to exceed, of course, your maximum. You will roll your hit dice, Ooh, another good rule, 7. You add your con modifier to that, and that is the number of hit points that you can regain during a short rest. Now, during a long rest, 5th edition rules of Dungeons & Dragons say that you will regain all of your hit points. So that's a heck of a thing, and it creates some tension in the game sometimes between DMs and player characters. If player characters just want to keep resting and re-up, Dungeon Masters are like, well, there's no skin in the game. All you gotta do is take a long rest and you're gonna be completely healed. Well, this is true. So this is where DMs can be a little bit more creative about maybe you don't get to take a long rest. Maybe your rest gets interrupted, or, I mean, it's not an adversarial thing, but you do want to make sure that the player characters feel like their actions have consequences in the game. And I think that's where probably where that tension comes from. So we've talked about hit points, what they are, what they mean. We've talked about hit dice and kind of how do you know what your class hit dice is and how to get those hit points from that particular class. We've talked about kind of getting hit points back while resting. And then of course, when you get hit, get whacked, whatever, that's when the hit points go down. The amount of damage that you're dealt is what comes off of your hit points. So, you know, it all kind of interconnects. So hope that helps clear up hit points. This is a short video. We're gonna jump right back into kind of the rest of the player character sheet. This is an important part of the player character sheet. We're gonna jump back into the rest of the D&D player character sheet with equipment, and we're getting close to finishing it out. And we're gonna do a demo on both using a paper player character sheet, as well as using DnDBeyond. So those demos are coming up, and then we're gonna get into some other fun topics. See you next time.